Folks, let's get back to the anti-Semitic protests rocking college campuses across this country. Columbia protesters occupied an administration building, and the university has tried to get them out by threatening suspensions and even expulsions. Other protests breaking out across this nation. And we also see examples like this of independent journalists like Ami Horowitz, who got beaten up carrying an American flag into an illegal encampment at New York City College. And one of my next guests, former CIA analyst Fred Fleitz, is blaming this on anti-Semitism and the rise of hatred towards Jews. For more, let's bring in Newsmax contributor and attorney Thane Rosenbaum, and also former CIA analyst and former Trump National Security Council member Fred Fleitz. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. In my view, the left wing has co-opted this debate, as they always do, and their goal is to replace our American way of life with Marxism and replace our Western values with Marxism. Where am I going wrong with this? Fred, you first.
I think you're exactly right. This didn't just come out of nowhere. This wasn't an organic protest. We've seen far left radicalism, DEI, intersectionality, students shouting down speakers that they don't agree with for years. These colleges have tolerated it. The teachers have tolerated it. They have promoted it. This is the result. And we know that anti-Semitism has been bubbling up on the left for a long time. So we need to hold students accountable and say that anti-Semitism is unacceptable. But frankly, I want to see tax dollars go into these schools until there are real reforms to flush this left-wing radicalism out of these institutions.
Well, Thane, plenty of Democrats have told us, Jewish Democrats have told us, they've been alarmed at the rise of anti-Semitism going on around the country inside of the Democrat Party. And as Mr. Fleitz just alluded to, it's getting worse. But I think we can start tracing back, because some journalistic operations have started tracing back the money trails of who's financing all of this well-coordinated effort across the country to bring in the Democrats' spring of hate. What is your take on all this?
Well, Chris, for years we've seen this sort of progressive, anti-American, veiled anti-Zionist, but that underneath that, of course, was anti-Semitism. But what's changed dramatically is we went from the heckler's veto of shouting people down to actually saying death to America, to actually replacing the American flag at Harvard with the Palestinian flag, with actually saying we are Hamas. Right. This is very, very different. The openness of the genocidal, murderous impulse, the Arab street that has infected London, Madrid, Berlin, Stockholm, Brussels is in America. We started to see it a number of weeks ago in Michigan, in Dearborn, and it has exploded. And if anyone is paying attention, you have to be very careful. The European cities that have been ruined by this, ruined by anti-Western hatred, violence, impulse towards Islamism. We have reached the point where, like at this point, the students have forfeited their student status. They are now on the side with terrorists. They have no claims that they can actually make. We have, as Fred knows, we have anti-terrorism laws in this country, and we should be applying them to people that are screaming, "We are Hamas." If you are Hamas, okay, we heard you. Very good, very nice. And now we need to put you in jail because you are a threat to all Americans. And that's something, this is a wake-up call, and it is much worse than what it is just, I'm speaking as a Jewish American and a law professor. Forget that for a second. This is about America. And if you're watching the Chris Salcedo show, that's what you should be thinking about, that Israel has always been aligned with America for a reason, and now the enemies of both countries have revealed themselves.
Right, and Joe Biden threw a statement trying to denounce all of it, but as we all know, Joe Biden barely speaks for himself. Actually, he doesn't speak for himself very well. Nobody believes that he speaks for Democrats anymore, and the Democrats are embracing all of this hate. Fred, this morning on my radio show, I had a chance to speak with Texas Governor Greg Abbott on these anti-Israel protests, these anti-Jewish protests in my state. Take a listen.
Yeah. So you had a characterization of of the activity, which I will not disagree with, but I'll add another word to it. Listen, it's lawlessness, and we as a state have a right and a responsibility to eliminate lawlessness. What was done on the campus of the University of Texas with regard to these protesters, it violates UT Austin rules, it violates City of Austin ordinances, it violates Texas law, And listen, warnings were given to these kids. Listen, we're going to come and arrest you if you don't stop your illegal activity.
Fred, what do you make of the Texas approach?
Well, they didn't allow these protests to get off the ground. And Texas recognizes that we would never allow Klansmen or Nazis to engage in violent protests, taking over university buildings, seizing university land. When it comes to threatening Jewish students, anti-Semitism, we shouldn't be negotiating with them. We shouldn't be suspending them. They should be expelled and prosecuted. There should be no tolerance for anti-Semitism on American colleges and universities.
Well, Thane, we've got phone calls coming in now that are streaming online. Parents are being told by police saying the universities are just telling you, you gotta buck up, camper. You're Jewish kids. They can't go to class. They can't come on campus. They can't go to the library. You just got to accept it because now the left-wing crazies run the show. What is your response?
Except for the fact that they're breaking the law. The students don't own the university. If they're engaged in intimidation, harassment, incitement, which intifada means, and we are Hamas, and those chants are not, and I can speak as a law professor who's written a book on the First Amendment, the First Amendment does not protect any of that. So the university presidents are lying to Americans. I can tell you right now, I can cite you the Supreme Court precedents. They're ignoring the Supreme Court precedents. Virginia versus Black, the true threats doctrine. Shaplinsky, fighting words doctrine. There is no protection for threatening the genocide of other people. But because the progressives have taken over the campus and the presidents are afraid of the students and the faculty, they will not apply the law.
Well, the Democrats are telling you they no longer feel confined by our laws. They no longer feel bound by the Constitution. I think Americans should pay attention and listen. In fact, you know what? The only people who don't seem to be paying attention to what the Democrats are doing are the Republicans. Thank you, Fred Fleitz, Thane Rosenbaum. Appreciate the time. Coming up next, we'll speak with Dr. Carrie Mendoza about the real science and medical ethics